This afternoon after posting steep declines over the past few weeks.
So where will commodities go from here? Sandra Smith joining us now with the story. Lord knows.
The timing of this story is a little off because what we're talking about is how the tides are turning and commodity prices are now coming down since we've seen corn hit records, oil hit records. But just as it happens to be today, we saw oil spike up, corn, soybeans,
largely because of Russia and Georgia.
Yeah, obviously largely because of, but we saw also the dollar firm up. You know, it's the dollar has been dropping for the past 8 straight days, and it actually came back a little bit. But the big story here is in the month of July. You can see these commodity prices going back to July 1st to today. Natural gas down 38%. Corn's turned around. It's now down 28%. Silver down 20%. Crude, as we've been talking about, down 19%. Cocoa. So it's not only the energy products, it's the grains are coming off. The metals are coming back as well. What are the analysts saying right now? Well, some of the analysts out there are saying this could continue. Deutsche Bank actually came out today and said, you know, you couple what's going on over in Saudi Arabia, boosting oil production, and then demand down in the U.S. and Europe. Couple those things together, and they say that oil prices are going to continue to go down to $100 a barrel by the beginning of 2009. But then you talk to you talk to the Jimmy Rogers of the world,
or the Peter Schiffs,
or the Peter Schiffs of the world, and they're going to say China, China, China. The commodity story, the oil story, will continue because.
Or the dollar is going to continue to stay weak, and that'll drive up prices.
Exactly.
What people really want to know about is inflation. Inflation, it's so sticky. It's like glue. In other words, if the story is that the prices go down, oil prices go down, inflation may come down. But, you know, food manufacturers, airlines, package delivery companies, they're not going to lower prices anytime soon.
We don't have inflation because prices are rising. Prices are rising because we have inflation. The reason that commodity prices are dropping now is because speculators are getting out of the market. But the underlying trend is bullish for commodities, and inflation is part of the reason. There's some real supply and demand imbalances, but of course underneath or underlying this commodity rally is inflation.
But Bob, shouldn't the Fed know that? Because you hear Bernanke himself suggesting that commodities are causing inflation, when in fact history tends to back up what Peter is saying, is that it's inflation that's causing commodity prices to go up.
But the Fed's mission right now has got nothing to do with what's going on in the underlying U.S. economy. The Fed's mission has been for most of this year and remains trying to reliquefy that financial
strengthen the economy.
They think it's accomplishing the same objective. I don't think.
So are they ignoring inflation entirely?
Absolutely, completely.
But Peter, what my point is that companies won't reduce prices. It'll go right to the bottom line. In other words, if oil goes down, big deal for them. They'll still keep prices high. No.
Well, as far as we're talking about retail gasoline prices?
Oh, no, airlines, food manufacturers,
well, sure, remember,
delivery companies.
These companies didn't raise their prices enough when their costs were going up. That's why they have horrific earnings. So they're not going to immediately cut their prices. They're probably going to keep raising prices because they still haven't caught up.
Toby Smith, do you agree with what Bob says, that, in fact, the Fed is ignoring inflation, other than giving lip service to it?
Well, I mean, of course, you have to say they've ignored, because if you look at the real interest rates, you know, minus inflation, you know, real inflation, we're probably at a negative 1% rate. Remember, our Fed has 2 jobs. They're supposed to have money supply be controlled, have prices be firm, and look at growth. Right now, Bob's absolutely right. They're on the side of preserving the financial system, and they did it by some pretty creative stuff, creating these new, financing vehicles. But the other issue we're not looking at is, let's not confuse price inflation with monetary inflation. They have actually kept the money supply relatively low, number one. And number two, if you look at the unit labor costs in America, because that's the inflation that sticks, guys. That has not gone anywhere.
Right. You know what, Gary Kaltbaum, you look at the futures traders down on Wall Street, they're split 50-50. Futures traders are saying possible rate increase. Economists on Wall Street saying not so. Where do you see see the Fed going?
Well, first off, I just think the Fed's been behind the curve for so long, and the fact that they even say they're an inflation fighter is an absolute laugh. I heard that line. They have done nothing to fight inflation whatsoever.
But where do you see rates going by the end of the year?
I think they're just going to sit right here. My bigger issue is what happens to the real market rates, the 10 and 30 year. My biggest worry throughout the last couple of years, and amazed that it hasn't happened, that long rates start to shoot up because of the fact they have not fought inflation.
Well,
by the way,
although Bob, it's not just rates. The Fed has the power to soak up some of the liquidity, soak up some of the cash that's out there. That's what Steve Forbes says.
By selling bonds.
Yeah, exactly. Without raising rates, by selling bonds, you could take care of inflation, or at least hit it partway that way.
Well, they'd have to completely reverse what they're doing because they've just been churning out the printing presses, filling the entire system with money. So this would be a 180.
Toby disagrees with you on that.
Okay.
Well, but Bob, if that was right, then why are the inflation tips, in other words, the bonds that have inflation, why are they trading down like today?
Because they're
at the
tied to
lowest
the
number they've been in the
CPI.
last
That's
3
not
days?
the real inflation. People know that. People are wising up to that con.
A con. Whoa. All right. Let's
The
leave it
con
there.
man at the Fed. We are going to leave it there. Thanks, gang.
All